Recording in progress.
Good morning, team. Andre, can you please do a roll call?
Good morning, Chair. I shall do that. Ms. Motsikatsi,
Present.
Mr. Chance,
I'm present.
Mr. Kigaba,
Present, thank you.
Mr. Gama.
I am present. Thank you very much.
Those are the members currently on the platform, Chair. The others may still join us, Chair, and we may proceed in terms of the rules.
Okay, thank you very much. You are all welcome, honorable members of Parliament and the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry, in this very important meeting as we continue our work as a Portfolio Committee. In 2018, the former Portfolio Committee on Trade Industry, sorry for that. Just 1 second for me. Sorry, in 2018, the former Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry and Competition received a report from the National Consumer Commission on the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa's ICASA's End User and Subscriber Service Charter regulations, particularly regarding the expiration of data. Based on Section 63(2) of the Consumer Protection Act, vouchers purchased must have a minimum expiry period of 3 years. While the telecommunications sector is primarily regulated by ICASA, data bundles as prepaid vouchers are also subjected to Section 63 of the Consumer Protection Act, which requires a 3-year validity period unless a longer period is agreed upon. However, it appears that the expiry period has not been standardized within the industry. Therefore, the purpose of the meeting today is to engage ICASA and the Department of Trade and Industry, Competition, the NCC, as well as the Competition Commission on the alignment of data bundles with the requirement of the CPA, as well as the efforts to ensure that the industry complies with consumer protection and competitive requirements. That's why today we have called this meeting. I must explain that this is not a joint meeting because it's part and parcel of ensuring that we oversee all the industries in South Africa. We have a responsibility to ensure that certain laws and regulations are complied with. I would now like to officially open this meeting and require and present the agenda before you so that we can adopt the agenda and then we can move. Can I get a move and seconder for the agenda as presented?
Chairperson, Honorable Motsikatsi, I move for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Motsikatsi. Move, and then can I get the seconder for that?
I second, Chair.
Thank you very much,
Gama.
Mr. Gama. Thank you very much. Are there any apologies?
Chair, we have an apology from Ms. Webster, Chair, and Ms. String for today's meeting, Chair. Thanks.
Mr. Tring.
Yes, Chair, we also were joined by Mr. Mshingila joined the platform, as well as Mr. Tambos since we started, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Welcome, colleagues. You are all welcome. As we were explaining that we are basically pursuing Section 63(2) of the Consumer Protection Act with regard to issues of data. We have invited ICASA and they will be taking us into confidence and then so that we can make necessary recommendations on this matter that is affecting our people on the ground. We now move to the actual presentation by, I'm not sure who's going to lead the delegation from the DTIC so that we get the presentation and ultimately ICASA.
If I might, Chair, through you?
Yeah.
Ms. Sandeli Brown is leading the DTIC delegation, Chair. I think we will start with, we'll do the introductory remarks, and thereafter I think ICASA will do the presentation, followed by the NCC and Competition Commission in whichever order they see fit, Chair.
No, that's fine. So we'll have all the representation before we discuss, so that we have a full picture of where we are, and also to identify gaps and so that when we make recommendations, we are together in terms of where we are. Over to you, Ms. Brown.
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members, and thank you for this opportunity by the Portfolio Committee to allow the entities to come and present the work that they have been doing on this very important topic. As the Chairperson has indicated, we have the NCC, which is represented by Mr. Hadin Ratchisusu, the Acting Commissioner, and we also have the Competition Commission, which will be led by Ms. Doris Tsepe. And Chairperson, the NCC will be basically talking to the work that it has done, as you've indicated, in terms of Section 63, and the Competition Commission will be talking to the work that it has done as part of its market inquiry in looking at issues of the expiration of data. Thank you, Chairperson. I will allow the different entities to indicate who they have been accompanied with as part of this meeting. Thank you very much.
So you guys can proceed. I don't need to come in because we've given it to you now, and we'll come in once you are done presentations.
Chair, if I may, Mr. ICASA will start with the presentation, Chair, and they will be led by Mr. Ramusu, who's the chairperson. Also, just to indicate that the Director General of the CSDS department, Ms. Jordan Gianni, is also on the platform, Chair. Thanks.
We can allow Ms. Jordan to introduce as well, and so that she can hand over to ICASA then.
Thank you very much, Chair, and a very good morning to you, Honorable Chair, as well as to the honorable members on the platform. Chair, my name is Nonkobela Jordan Gianni. I am the Director General of the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. Joined on the platform by the colleagues in the department, but I think because in the main, the presentation is going to be done by ICASA. I see that the chair has just left his chair. So we've got on the platform, fortunately, the chairperson of ICASA. I've also seen that the chair is also joined by a number of councillors as well. I see Councillor Catherine Mushi on the platform who's joined, and I would like to also acknowledge the other councillors on the platform along with the ICASA delegation. For purposes of proper transparency, Chair, let me ask then the chair of ICASA to then indicate who from ICASA will be doing the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning. Thank you, DG. Just by way of introducing myself, it's Mutibi Ramusi. I'm the Chairperson of ICASA. Let me take this opportunity, Chair and honorable members, to thank for the opportunity bestowed on us, especially discussing the matter, as you've said, Chair, which is very close to all citizens in this country. I can just assure the Chair and honorable members that this has been a matter within our ambit, and we have made some strides in the past years. And I'm now going to hand over, Chair, with your permission, to Councillor Mushi, who's been leading one of our council committees that has the full responsibility in advising the authority on issues that relates to the topic that we'll be discussing this morning. I'm joined as well by some of our subject matter specialists from ICASA. So as Chair has indicated, at the time when we're going to be responding to questions, I think Councillor Mushi then will guide in terms of who will chip in. But once more, thank you very much. Councillor Mushi, I hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Let me mute my other device. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the Chair of the meeting. Thank you, DG. Chairperson, Let me just make some clarification with regards to today's proceeding. Our understanding was that we are here supporting NCC, and the presentation that we've got is mainly the one that was shared by the NCC, where ICASA made inputs on specific slides. So I wanted to just get clarity. We are in the meeting to speak to slide 16 and 17. And I don't know if we look at the agenda, if we should be following the presentation, which starts with the mandate of the NCC, applicable CPA provisions regarding the expiry of data and previous interventions, and then followed by NCC's collaboration with ICASA. So I just wanted to get that clarity. Otherwise, we did not prepare a separate presentation. Our slides are embedded in the NCC's presentation. So if I can just get clarity on how we should proceed.
Andre, in terms of the invitation and how we have sought to deal with this matter, can you please help us clarify so that there is clarity in the meeting?
Chair, the request was for ICASA to do a presentation as well. Chair, I was not aware that they embedded that hence we started with the proceedings with ICASA, which will be followed by the NCC and the Competition Commission, because they would lay the foundation for the issues, and then thereafter NCC and Competition Commission will then also comment on the issues that were raised. That was the approach that we take, but the committee can determine whether we will take an alternative route to that approach, Chair.
Yeah. So we did receive a presentation from ICASA, which is comprehensive. I assume then we got it from yourself. So because we wanted to make sure that we have a full picture, and we know that obviously this is more in pursuant of the CPA Act, but specifically with regard to your issues, it would be good, because we're a new committee, to get that background information from yourself, including all the things that you would have done. And where your slides collaborate in the main presentation, then you will obviously indicate that, but it will be important for you to give us that background, because you do have the presentation that was shared with us. And I'm sure, Andre, you can, and your team, you can flight it so that they can follow the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
You can proceed, guys.
Should we have the presentation of ICASA? So for Ms. Mushi to proceed, Chair?
Apologies, the presentation that is flighted is not the correct one. My understanding, as I said, our slides are embedded in the NCC presentation. It looks like the slides are mixed up. The slides that we contributed are in the NCC presentation. It was not a separate pack.
So can we ask a commissioner of the NCC so that you can maybe then lead us and then where you ask us to come in? I think let's do that.
That would be much better because the flow would be much better. Then I will come in on slide 16 and 17 thereabout. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and good morning, members of the committee. We will be presenting from the National Consumer Commission. Just need to share. Oh, there's a problem. Okay. Thing disappeared. What happened? What's happened?
Chair, shall we ask Margaret to share if there's a challenge, Chair?
Yes. I think there was a technical glitch. I can share, but they can run it also from your side. I don't think that there will be an issue. Thank you, Chair. Apologies for that. So this is the presentation of the National Consumer Commission on data expiration and consumer protection. And the Councillor has indicated this is an area that we've been working collaboratively with the ICASA, and we will be providing that update in some respects jointly. From the NCC, I'm joined by Ms. Prudence Moilwa, who's the head of complaints and investigations. I also have on the call Ms. Patton Dava, who's the spokesperson for the National Consumer Commission. We will cover in the presentation the mandate of the NCC. You have already outlined that, Chair, in your introductory remarks, the applicable provisions of the CPA regarding expiry of data, previous intervention of the NCC, NCC's collaboration with ICASA, and here I will also invite ICASA to intervene as we are presenting recent consumer complaints in the communication sector, and will conclude. The National Consumer Commission is established by the Consumer Protection Act 2008, and in terms of Section 85, its core mandate is to enforce the Consumer Protection Act. The purpose of the Consumer Protection Act is, amongst others, to promote and advance the social and economic welfare of consumers in South Africa generally, and in particular, low-income persons or persons in low-income communities, those who live in remote, isolated or low-density areas, minors, seniors, or other vulnerable consumers, and those that are illiterate, vision impaired, or with limited fluency in the language the information is presented. The CPA also protects consumers from unconscionable, unfair, unreasonable, unjust, or otherwise improper trade practices. And it also seeks to promote a fair, accessible, and sustainable marketplace for consumer products and services, and to establish national norms and standards relating to consumer protection. The applicable provisions of the Consumer Protection Act regarding data expiring, in the main provision is Section 63 of the Consumer Protection Act regarding prepaid certificates, credits, and vouchers. Section 63(1) of the CPA states that this section applies only to a transaction in which a supplier A accepts consideration from a person in exchange for a prepaid certificate, card, credit, voucher, or similar device, and B expressly or implicitly agrees to provide goods or services to any person who subsequently presents that certificate, card, credit, voucher, or similar device up to the value represented by it, but does not apply with respect to such a device or the value represented by it after all of the value of the device has been exchanged for goods, services, or future access to services. And the Act further stipulates that a prepaid certificate, card, credit, voucher, or similar device contemplated in subsection 1 does not expire until the earlier of the date on which its full value has been redeemed in exchange for goods or services or future access to services, or 3 years after the date on which it was issued, or at the end of a longer or extended period agreed by the supplier at any time. Subsection 3 states that any consideration paid by a consumer to a supplier in exchange for a prepaid certificate, card, credit, voucher, or similar device contemplated in subsection 1 is the property of the bearer of that certificate, card, credit, voucher, or similar device to the extent that the supplier has not redeemed it in exchange for goods or services or future access to services. With this legal framework in mind, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, the NCC in 2015 conducted an audit of the terms and conditions of mobile network operators to review their compliance with the CPA, particularly Section 63. Following the 2015 audit, most of the terms and conditions were subsequently revised to align with the CPA. But we will note, Chair, later in the presentation that we continue to receive complaints against mobile network operators. Interpretation of Section 63 of the CPA was rigorously contested between the NCC and industry, specifically subsection 2 that talks to the validity of the prepaid certificates or credit voucher or any similar device. And this is where, Chair, as you noted in your opening remarks that this is the provision that offers and provides protection to consumers with respect to expiry of vouchers or credit or any prepaid certificate. We have, as the NCC, collaborated with ICASA on this matter, especially because the NCC and ICASA have concurrent jurisdiction over matters relating to consumer protection in the electronic communication sector. The collaboration of the two entities is provided for in terms of sections 92 and 97 of the Consumer Protection Act, as well as section 4B9 of the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa Act number 13 of 2000. To this end, the NCC and ICASA concluded a memorandum of understanding as contemplated in our respective legislation. The MOU was finalized during the first quarter of 2015-16 financial year, and it is still in force. Our legislation also require us to participate in each other regulatory, proceedings, and also provide advice or receive advice on any of the matters that we are dealing with. In this regard, ICASA, on this particular issue, requested information from its licensees with the participation of the NCC. This was done to assess consumer protection measures in the sector. The information that was focused on then was mainly on data billing, expiry of data, and international roaming. On expiry of data, engagement with industry was to assess business practices in relation to expiry of data and unused minutes, particularly the following 4 areas: the data expiry rules that were applied in respect of prepaid airtime and data packages on the one hand, and postpaid airtime and data packages on the other. Any alternative usage options available to the consumer to exhaust their postpaid or prepaid credits prior to the expiry date. For example, whether the consumer can convert airtime into data, or does the consumer have the option to transfer available credits to third parties prior to expiry. The third area was the potential financial impact on the organization should the expiry rules and or policies be continued. And in particular, fourthly, which the fourth area, we looked at how much revenue is derived by each supplier in the industry from paid for but unused credits for data or airtime, which expires for both contract and prepaid packages. There was cooperation from mobile network operators, and they duly responded and provided required responses, including confidential information. Submissions that were made during the engagements resulted in draft end user and subscriber charter regulations by ICASA to incorporate consumer protection measures on areas of concern, including data expiration. And perhaps maybe, Chair, as Councillor has said, we did engage ICASA upon your invitation to ensure that the information we provide to the committee is up to date and reflects the current program of ICASA. And I would hand back to ICASA just on this particular slides, and we will then continue the presentation. Councillor.
Thank you. So proceeding from the slide on, the slide talks to the process that we've undertaken to review, amend the end user subscriber service charter regulations. It has been a journey as we're trying to find ways to implement these regulations effectively. So what has then happened in 2018, we introduced section regulations 8A, 8B, 8C to try and deal with issues of depletion and out of bundle billing practices. But before I proceed, let me just make some prior comments just for clarification. Our collaboration with NCC is as follows. NCC talks to vouchers, prepaid certificates, and credits, which are, as they are bought, must then be valid for 3 years. In our service charter regulations, because in the ECA, we do not talk to vouchers, we talk to activation of those vouchers. We are then saying it is only when that voucher is activated and it is available for usage that now we are saying the service is active. As it was said earlier, that it is only when that voucher is exchanged for goods or services that then we are saying in the end user subscriber charter that it is activated for use. Now the rules are then saying once that voucher has been activated for usage, there must be the following rules: that the licensee must send usage depletion notifications via SMS, push notifications, or any applicable means to the end user to notify them of the depletion, and the licensees then to also, make a distinction between different buy-in opt-out options. And let me just say also that what we are trying to do in the end user service charter is to lock in that value, that whatever value that you have purchased remains valid and usable, that it does not disappear. So it does not speak to the price of the bundle necessarily, but that whatever that you have purchased, it then does not just expire, because we realized, rightfully so, as we consulted the licensees, there were different practices, and we soon understood that the complaints that were coming through were on how the licensees were applying the rules differently on expiry, which data must expire first. And we are also cognizant of the fact that whilst we are putting in these rules in place, we also don't want to take away the benefits of those short-term bundles, your 5 rands bundles that somebody would be able to purchase to just make a quick data transaction. So it has been quite a tricky balance for us to say, how do we then put these rules that we also don't take away the benefits, especially for the low-end market. So back to the regulatory framework. As I said, in 8A, we were saying there must be depletion notifications. And then on 8B, we said the out-of-bundle billing practices, the licensees must ensure that when data expires, a subscriber is given an option to opt in or opt out of automatic bundle purchase. Because what we found amongst the complaints was that subscribers would have been opted into the out of bundle expense that they didn't subscribe to. And whilst we were at it, we are also now struggling with the fact that there are some customers that says, if my bundle is depleted and I'm traveling on business, I don't want to be cut out. But then the other end of the consumers are saying, but I do not want to be opted in when my bundle expires. I would rather be given an option to purchase an additional bundle. So as I said, it's a tricky balance, having to satisfy the lower, higher end of the market differently. But we have put in those rules, and also the rollover of unused data and transfer of data that says, if you've got data that is left out at the end of the expiry period, it shouldn't just disappear, but it must be rolled over maybe once in a cycle. And also, if you've got two types of data bundles, which one should be rolled over, which one must expire? Because it happens that a subscriber can purchase a bundle and purchase maybe from another promotion, another bundle. So on the subscriber's device, there would be two different types of bundles that are loaded. Now, the question was which one must expire first. So, and then also that if I've got excess data, I should be able to transfer it to someone else, my family member or so that we're still saying, if I'm not able to use my value, let me transfer the value to another subscriber. So these are the rules that we've been trying to balance in the end user subscriber charter. And some of the rules, we even had to amend the regulation further. After 2018, 2022, we now have a 2025 version where we're consistently trying to just balance what can work best in the market. And of course, 8C, we're saying also there must be strong consumer education and awareness by our licensees so that, our end users also with smartphones, we know that there are some applications that keep updating in the background and it is using data, and we're getting complaints that my data just disappeared. And when they go to the licensee says, but you're on a smartphone and this is what is happening in the background. So that, we try and minimize the complaints. We can go to the next slide. I'm sure I have spoken to the issues on the next slide, yes. So this is where I was saying we have recently also amended the 2024 version, and we are aiming to publish the amended version by the end of November 2025, wherein we also realized that your airtime data market is somehow used interchangeably because people buy airtime and they transfer the airtime into a data packet usage. So also, how then do we do the rollover and transfer of bundles between licenses? And the most that we've had is that the transfer is good, but it should be transferred within a network because bundles are now priced on net. And when it's an off-net usage, the charges are different. So we also had to consider those that if I have given you value to say, buy my bundle, and I'm giving you a certain value, you cannot transfer my value now to another network provider. So at the end, we ended up saying, actually, looking at what is happening in the market, that airtime is bought and then transferred into airtime and data, we probably now just need regulation 8A and 8B, and this is the amendment that we will be publishing in the 2025. So back to how we are collaborating with NCC is that we are now talking to each other about, I have bought a voucher, I have not exchanged it for data. It cannot expire until I have used it. And now the operators are saying, but that value, we have provision for it on our network. So if it stays unused forever, then we are not able to provision our network accordingly. We've got to put some timelines that says, in 3 years' time, you must have exchanged a voucher for usage so that the networks are also able to provision their network accordingly. Thank you. Back to you, Hadin.
Thank you, Councillor. And Chair, yeah, just to augment what the Councillor is saying is that we are working very closely with the ICASA, and as you can see that there are measures to address this issue and to align this with the Consumer Protection Act. We thought, Chair, we should also update you on some of the conduct issues we are picking up in the sector. So we are receiving and we continue to receive complaints against mobile network operators on various issues, including cancellation penalties, unjust billing, continued billing after cancellation of contracts, misrepresentations, marketing, fraudulent contracts. Maybe this is not something that specific operators are driving, but this is what's happening in the market. And the delays in processing of refunds and non-delivery of goods and payment demand beforehand, and issues of blacklisting of consumers. In 2024-25, we received 946 complaints. We have resolved 444 of these, which is where the mobile network operator agrees to address the issue. And there are those that we may be taking forwards to the tribunal. The NCC is concerned about the number of complaints in the sector, as this trend is continuing in 2025-2026. We'll show this in the chart. This is just to summarize the complaints we've been receiving, the 946 of last financial year, with most from Vodacom, followed by Telkom, MTN, and the least number from Cell C. This year, we have already received 864 complaints about those issues I've mentioned. We have resolved 342, and as I've said, some we are considering, further enforcement action, particularly where there are repeat offenses on these issues. And in conclusion, Chair, whilst the NCC has not received specific complaints regarding data expiry, it is nevertheless aware of the public outcry, especially as data is at the center of communication in this digital age. This is the basis for the continuing proactive engagement with ICASA on the regulatory landscape and appropriate intervention. The NCC will continue to prioritize the communications market, particularly in relation to potentially unfair and exploitative trade practices. With respect to data expiry, the NCC will continue its engagement with ICASA on an approach that will safeguard consumers' rights and ensuring that mobile network operators do not exploit consumers. And Chair, as you have heard from ICASA, these regulatory reforms are quite imminent, and consumers in the country will be assured that they will be able to use their packages for the period consistent with the Consumer Protection Act as well as prescripts or regulatory prescripts from ICASA. So thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee. This then concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I'm not sure, Commissioner Doris, Commissioner Tsipe, whether you've got a presentation as well. You can go ahead together with your team.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and honorable members, the DTIC, the DOC, ICASA, NCC, and other colleagues. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to present to the committee on this issue. I am joined by I always have to claim him, Chair, because sometimes he forgets he is the Deputy Commissioner of the Competition Commission, Mr. Hadin Rachisusu, and the Divisional Manager in the Office of the Commissioner, Mr. Andile Kwabeni. They are here with me. Chair, if we can move to the next slide. Our slides are very short, Chair, and we had started here, Chair, because we thought it was a joint meeting where we talk about the Commission, its mandate, and the tools. But I'm going to be very brief here because we have said this to the committee, and the committee is well aware on this. But just to say, Chair, that in the coming discussion, you will see we're going to speak more broadly on market inquiries, on the market inquiry that we have engaged on data services. We will touch on mergers and acquisitions as well, on its impact on data costs, and some of the enforcement cases we're having on data. We have not spoken on advocacy, Chair, but I do think that this is the one area where I think with the MOUs we have with both ICASA and the NCC, I think there is scope for more work for all of us to engage more broadly on this, Chair. If we could move to the next slide. Chair, as I said, we have not, as the Commission, we're currently not doing any work on data expiration. And this is largely, as we say, something that falls within the jurisdiction of ICASA and the NCC, and it is already within their work plan through the regulations that we have seen that they have been doing. However, our work has been more focused on reducing the cost to communicate more broadly with some of this work that we are presenting and discussing in the presentation below. And Chair, just to say, as I said earlier, it will be on the data service market inquiry, as some of the measure, in particular one measure that we have dealt with. We will talk about some of the, as the NCC done, some of the complaints we continue to receive from consumers in the communication sector more broadly. Chair, as you know, market inquiries are a more pro-competitive and proactive tool designed to address any market features that adversely affect competition in a market, including the structure of the market, outcomes or conduct of participants, suppliers, and consumers. In market inquiries, the scope of the market inquiry more broadly is determined by its terms of reference, and the market inquiry has powers to summon information and to hold public hearings and enable evidence-based finding. The market inquiry that we did in this sector was the data service market inquiry. Chair, you'll recall that this market inquiry was concluded in 2019, and it was quite pertinent at the time because the outcomes of that market inquiry proved very useful during the COVID-19 where data and online services were quite critical for South Africa. And it was initiated following persistent concerns about the high level of data prices and the importance of data affordability for the South African economy and consumers. There were a number of findings that were made, Chair, about mobile data prices, particularly that they were excessively high. What the Data Service Market Inquiry then did was to come up with a number of remedies. The first was a consent agreement that were concluded with Vodacom and MTN to reduce the cost of prepaid 1 gigabytes and under monthly bundles by 50%. What this did also was it cost other MNOs, mobile network operators, to reduce prices and cost above the 1 gigabyte prices to fall as a result. The impact, we conducted an impact assessment, and what it demonstrated is that there was a consumer savings of over 4 billion rand in the first year alone, and catalyzed further price reduction. The market inquiry also introduced the zero rating for public benefit organizations and localized specials in low-income areas, along with transparency on special offers. This has now become part of the spectrum licensing requirements issued by ICASA. The Commission also, as part of its recommendation in the market inquiry, is supporting DCDT with ICASA on the amendment to the Electronic Communication Act to reform wholesale markets to enable greater retail competition by MNOs and MVNOs. This amendment bill has passed through Cabinet and was published for public comments. What it would do, Chair, is to enable cost-based pricing of shared facilities and roaming agreements to foster more competitive retail pricing from those contracting infrastructure and facilitate wayleaves for municipal infrastructure. If we could move. So Chair, that is the work on the market inquiry that we're doing to try and deal with a reduction of data pricing in the market. On mergers and acquisition, Chair, I will talk about the Vodacom Maziv settlement that we had. And our approach here has been to permit efficiency, enhancing consolidation while protecting price competition within the market. And as you would have read, Chair, in the settlement, we ensured competitive home broadband pricing, and here there is a requirement for Vodacom to achieve 90% coverage for 5G and to meet connection targets for fixed wireless access home broadband products that will require very competitive pricing, and required Maziv to roll out new fiber homes and to meet aggressive connection rates that will require low pricing, along with commitments to keep low-speed fiber packages that are used mainly by low-income consumers and restrict price increases. Our experience in the data services market inquiry indicates that where you have this kind of price competition introduced as a result of intervention, it pressures our competitors to also reduce their pricing as well, Chair. So we're hoping that these interventions will do so as well. In investigations, like the NCC said, we continue to receive complaints in the sector, and the complaints range from open access for fiber networks to prices for reverse billing, a website aimed to absorbing data costs from users. we continue to deal with them, Chair, and that's how we have been dealing with some of the pricing concerns that are coming from here. So thank you, Chair. This is all that we're doing. But as I said, Chair, there is a scope, I think, on data pricing for the Commission, the NCC, and ICASA to work more closely, including continuing to support them in the parliamentary process for the amendments to the ECA when that comes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So I think we now have received all the presentations, and ICASA has come in on slide 16 and 17 to clarify. I will now open to honorable members to engage with the presentation. Andre, you will help me with the hands.
No problem, Chair. We have Mr. Tambo at the moment, Chair.
Mr. Tambo.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the NCC, the Competition Commission, and ICASA for the presentations. I was just telling the Chairperson on the sidelines that it's quite an unfortunate day to have convened such an important meeting with a lot of our attention focused on the Majanga Commission. But I hope we'll all be able to make contributions which are necessary to this important discussion, one which, due to my sitting on the Portfolio Committee on Communications, I've been interacting with quite extensively, and I think it's the second time I'm interacting with ICASA. The last time it was on the 18th of March. And I'm glad to have a date now because the amendment of the regulations for the end user subscription charter, there wasn't a firm date as to when these would be ready. We were told there would be consultations in place or taking place within the financial year for those to be finalized. I hear now by the end of November 2025, they will be finalized to ensure that there is a rollover or transfer options of data instead of expiry. So I appreciate the date on that. I think the first question I'd like to ask from ICASA is who did they consult specifically in the drafting of the regulations, or who do they continue to consult? Because my biggest concern is that the consultations by ICASA on how it crafts regulations as it relates to either data cost or data expiry, which is the topic of discussion today, is that it relies primarily on inputs from mobile network operators. And I hear that in the undertones in the presentation from ICASA is that we have to take into consideration that the mobile network operators are saying they cannot have a non-ending, non-expiry of data because it relates to how they allocate their resources. And in a meeting we had with them in the Communications Portfolio Committee as well, they said it's like booking of a parking space. It can't be used non-endingly. And we, of course, disagree with this notion, but it's a debate which is ongoing. But I'm interested as to, in 18 March, we were told in the Communications Portfolio Committee that you're going to be undergoing consultations which will inform the regulations of the end user charter, subscriber charter. Who has been making inputs in relations to this? Has there been views sourced from ordinary South Africans who are experiencing what we characterize as a violation of their constitutional rights to access to information? Because as has been said here today, access to data is access to information. There's nothing you can do in society without having access to.
Sorry, there's someone who's. Sorry, you can proceed, Honorable Tambo.
Okay. Yeah, as it affects ordinary people. So I'm interested as to, has there been any consultations undertaken thus far since the last update we had received on a different committee, of course? Who have these consultations been with? And are we not relying primarily on the inputs of mobile network service providers who I would, at this point in time, assume prioritize profit maximization over the interests of ordinary South Africans? To the National Consumer Commission, I'm interested on the On Section 63 of the Consumer Protection Act, where you make note on 2A and 2B, specifically that a prepaid certificate, card, credit voucher, or similar device contemplated in subsection 1 does not expire until the earlier of a date at which its full value has been redeemed in exchange for goods or services or further access to services, or 3 years after the date which it was issued, or at the end of a longer or extended period agreed by the supplier at any time. Would this mean, and it's a question, would this mean that mobile network operators are currently in violation of Section 63, subsections 2A and 2B of the Consumer Protection Act as it relates to prepaid data and airtime expiries? I'd be very curious to hear as to what that entails. And I think those would be my 2 inputs for now, Chairperson. Thank you.
Chair, Mr. Nchingila, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Chingila.
Thanks, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members, and also the delegation from the Consumer Commission. And
can you please, there's a background noise, Honorable Chingila, if you can just...
Please mute the Mazanga Commission.
Yeah.
issue are just juggling between...
Apologies, just switch on until you're finished talking.
Okay, yeah, no, am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. No, thanks to Chairperson. Of course, this is a very important subject. Data expiration and consumer protection mandates, which is informed by the CPA of 2008, which is expected to protect consumers from unfair and unreasonable, unjust, or exploitative practices. And our focus would primarily be on vulnerable groups, which are mostly low-income, rural, illiterate, minors, and seniors who don't necessarily afford data. Some don't even have that infrastructure for connectivity. So the presentation covers the legislative framework as to what governs the operations. I mean, Section 63 cited the prepaid vouchers, credits that cannot expire before 3 years, of course, unless fully used. But of course, the money paid remains and the property of the consumer until redeemed, which is correctly cited there. But our focus, Chair, so is that the NCC ought to fully recognize public anger, but also public need and interest, because policies and regulations are developed to address problems. So it's not necessarily for profit, but for service. So I think the focus ought to be shifted, that it begins to address the engagements. And of course, NCC ought to continue having engagement with ICASA to protect the interest of consumers against exploitative expiry practices. So we've noted the MOU and these other issues. But we wanted to propose, Chair, that the immediate enforcement of Section 63, that data must last at least that for that 3 years, unless unused, of course, then ban outright on data expiry, because that's corporate theft, and not necessarily a much-needed service for the vulnerable groups that I've cited in my opening remark. But also investigate and criminally charge mobile operators for violating consumer laws, but also decommodify communications. That data access must be a basic right, like education and water, but also break up duopoly of Vodacom and MTL for structural separation of wholesale and retail arms. But maybe lastly, Chair, as a recommendation, that free basic data allocation for all South Africans must be made available, but funded by taxing white monopoly through their profits. So we ought to adopt radical policy postures if we are to serve the interests of the nation, because currently it's a profit-driven business model that which suffocates and exploits those that are marginalized, vulnerable, mostly excluded from the economic activity. So we propose and recommend that these recommendations be considered in our next engagements and in their engagements with or maybe the updating of the MOU. Such consideration be engaged in those sittings sponsored by members of this committee in responding to challenges that are registered to us by our constituents. Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much.
Okay, there's no further hands, Chair. Mr. Gama raised his hand now, Chair.
Yes, Honorable Gama.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to all our presenters this morning. My question revolves around the service providers or the network operators, as it were. You indicated that they shared information with both ICASA and the National Consumer the NCC, in terms of which they indicated how much of their revenue was actually from sources such as this expiry of data. I would like to just understand what was the proportion of revenue that they got from data that they sold and bundles that then expired before they were used. Were you able to do an assessment, not just on average, but maybe per network operator in terms of how much of that constituted a percentage of their revenues? Thank you very much.
Is there another hand?
Your hand appears to be up, Chair. I don't know how.
I don't know.
My hand has been up, Chair. I don't know. Maybe I have a problem.
Good.
Yeah.
Chair, my hand has been up.
Yes, I'm recognizing you, Honorable Mgoto.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Chair. I think, Chair, Honorable Tambo captured the last part, at least, that he was raising about the consultation process. And the sense I also got was that consultation is slanted towards the providers more than the users. And I think also I want to re-emphasize the question that he asked around the process of consultation. The second point, Chair, you see, I think is, Chair, abantu base-South Africa bayadinisa, the issue here, Chair, is that if we accept that data is equal to access to information, and we accept that we are entering or we have entered into an information age, and that the capabilities of building our capacity of the economy to higher levels of efficiency, surely the issue of access to data has an impact. And that means if you speak about education, the issue of access to data becomes important. And just the general access to information of ordinary South Africans. Now, simamele apha abantu abakhumshayo basixela ngo-subsection 63 bayakhumsha. I justify why this thing of having an expiring data as if it's food is there. Because if you read that subsection, it's a lot of English that doesn't justify this expiration of data. The fact is, Chair, you have bought the data. And when you have bought that data, you can't justify now that you have bought it, there's an exchange, there's a transaction. And now the very same thing that you have bought as a commodity, which by the way, ICASA, all of a sudden now must expire, as if, as Honorable Tam would have raised, as if it's a parking space. And if we're serious about transforming this country, we've got to be, I don't want to use the word that funeka sibe ngwabalala. Ngwabalala means got to be harsh. We've got to be harsh, Chair. We have an industrial policy here that we've been discussing. And in the main, that industrial policy must be driven by one, access to information, and driven by technology. And that technology must be unlocked. The value of that technology must be unlocked through accessibility of internet. And if, Chair, we are not able to be harsh to say these instruments such as that data access and access to information for our people and at the level of basic education, how to use access to data so that we are able to elevate the level of skills, the level of education of our people. Because, by the way, Chair, you can just sit on Google and YouTube and learn some skills. You don't now have to go to formal education to learn some skills. And the point is that if you don't give access to data, which of course in the final analysis is access to information, we create sloppy subsections and sections that impede our people from accessing information. I mean, for me, I don't know really. For the past year or two that I've been in Parliament, I think that something really is deeply wrong about South Africa. And we're the one who complain that this government has not been able to do anything. Whilst we create our own red tapes, we create our own challenges whilst we are in charge of the state. As policymakers, Chair, we've really got to be harsh in opposing this exploitation, because the name for this thing is exploitation. It's just Ongawangulu exploiting users to derive profits and maximum value out of data. The question that Honorable Siakama is asking, by the way, is just that he's old, he can't say it like me. He wants to arrive to a point where he proves that really this exploitation. And I think, Chair, we've got to be decisive. We've got to propose a clear policy and law that must guide this thing. And abantu bakuthi, you buy that for 50 for your last 15 rands. Then tomorrow that data is expired. Then you must go now and borrow data again and again it expires. It's complete nonsense, Chair. And I think that we've got to be decisive. Let's say things as they are. This is exploitation. Baba exploit abantu bakuthi and funeka sibangande. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, there's no further hands, Chair.
Other members, you don't want to have a bite? Okay. No, I think colleagues, the reason why we call this particular meeting really is to try and ensure that we streamline and align all the legislative or regulatory issues that we are dealing with from all the entities, as we call them, because the ultimate objective here is to arrive at the point where we say unequivocally that data shouldn't expire. Even if you put that 3, I don't think that there's someone who can buy data and not use it for 3 years. It will be unreasonable. But our experience is all of us, we use data for our children and for ourselves. So you buy data today, 10 gig, and then 12 days later, they tell you that it's going to expire in 2 days. And you don't know what to do with it. And you can't transfer it to anybody or anything. It's just that it's a pure robbery, which must be stopped. And I think the question by Honorable Gama is very critical. Maybe Competition Commission would need to establish for us as to when this whole thing started, how much the people of South Africa have been robbed. And so that politically and in other places we can propose some form of reparations, because there are a lot of things that are not happening. But it doesn't have to be reparations that will go in the hands of individuals. We can either have sanctions like these companies who have robbed the people of South Africa, paying back either through institutions of higher learning and some making data available for free in those institutions over a particular period of time to pay back to the people of South Africa. Because it can be that we allow theft to continue or that has taken place and we let it go just because we're not clear. The CPA is very clear. And I think that we are happy with ICASA, the fact that they are readjusting areas where they knew that, or it was clear that there were loopholes in as far as they are concerned, and would like to implore them to honestly fully realign with the CPA, that section that we're talking about. And where there are gray areas that makes the providers to question, where we must be implicit or explicit as in terms of the CPA, we can easily also come here in Parliament and amend it so that it can favor our people. What we don't want here, we don't want our people to be worse off, because everybody, for one reason or the other, from looking for jobs, from looking for opportunities, everybody is now dependent on data. We're in the data, era. So it's important that we speak firmly about this, and we make it known that the Portfolio Committee on Trade and Industry, and we will still engage the Portfolio Committee on the telecommunications as well. Just broadly, if there are policy issues, there are legislative issues that requires us to jointly, make those amendments. But for now, I think that it's sufficient to make this point, or maybe to get assurance from the 3 presenters, ICASA, NCC, as well as Competition Commission, on how we can, because when we leave this meeting, we need to tell the people of South Africa what government generally and broadly has done to ensure that the data that they bought, firstly, is affordable, but secondly, the data remains valid for a particular period, not that what we're experiencing now, because all of us are experiencing it. Sometimes they do send a message, sometimes they don't send a message, you just realize that we don't have data. And that's about it. So we just want that certainty. So can you just have the 3 of you responding at the back of your response? Tell us, in terms of when we leave this meeting, what do we communicate to the people of South Africa who are faced with these challenges over and above what you're going to say? Firstly. Secondly, what are the regulatory or legislative realignment that must be made to arrive at this determination so that data is accessible and also affordable? Over to you in the manner in which you presented. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. I will maybe ask Councillor to start. I think there's a question by Honorable Gamma, and my colleague Prudence will deal with that there, and then I will answer the remaining questions.
Thank you. So let me respond to the consultation process and explain that when we go out to do public consultation, we do notify the public and operators of the process. And in the past, we have had advocacy group, for example, Amandla Mobi, participating in the draft publications, the consumer advisory panel, and we do also analyze the complaints that come through to ICASA and some that are shared with NCC to see the slant, the kind of complaints that we need to respond to. And this is part of what has informed the now recent adjustments, where we realized that even the 2022 was still not perfectly addressing the complaints. So, and I just want to say that since March, what has happened is that whilst we are reviewing the regulations, the 2022 regulations are still in force. They remain in force, which means operators are still obligated to do allow data transfers and not allow out of bundle. So those regulations are not repealed until the new adjustments will be published in November 2025. So there isn't a lacuna. Those 2022 regulations are in force. And with regards to the public message is that ICASA has, for example, in the end user, enforced a provision that says consumers must lay complaints, consumers must be notified in the stores where licensees must publish the processes that must be explicit. There is a lot that we talk to in how contracts, the information that must be provided to consumers to supplement NCC's contracts mandate, where we are trying, but the message is that we are trying to lock in the value of what has been purchased through the end user service charter regulations. Where there are dissatisfactions, there is a complaints process, and ICASA actively facilitates the resolution of the complaints. I don't have the numbers, but the complaints are coming through, and those complaints get resolved, and some get passed on to NCC as the Memorandum of Understanding permits. Now, there are legislative adjustments that will have to be made, also to empower ICASA to put in certain rules in place. Just over the top, what I want to just say is that whilst we are regulating in the public interest, we also are challenged in striking the balance of not interfering with commercial operations. And the reason why that is important to us is that we are litigated whenever ICASA imposes harsher, stricter rules on operators. And we have said even to the department that ICASA, we don't have the resources to fight back. So most of the time we try and strike that balance. Whether we will be able to come up with a non-expiry of data that we don't have an answer to, and I think that discussion can be taken further on. But what I also wanted to say is that when we license operators, in the license conditions, we do give licensees, the operators, service obligations where we have obligated them to give free Wi-Fi, hotspots, free school connectivity. We have been extending those obligations for our public to have access to data. It is not perfect, but we have been trying to make data freely accessible. We have 0 rated websites for education. So maybe we do welcome the further consultation process, the collaborative process where ICASA can share more on what we are doing from our side to try and make data accessible and cheaper, though the expiry provision, we are not yet at it, maybe with a legislative adjustment. But let me hand over to my chair, Councillor Mutibi, for your comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mushi. Through you, Chairperson, honorable members. Chair, I think from our side, we acknowledge all the issues and contribution made by members. I think from my side, what I can assure members and the chair is one of the issues that we have picked up, I think, in our legislative frameworks is the overlaps of mandates when it comes to some of the issues that we're discussing this morning. So I'm glad that I think we're at a stage where we need to find a way to realign our mandates because, you know, in a technical manner, when we talk about expiry, for example, a voucher, and when we talk about data expiry, there's another underlying aspect in our world of regulations where you talk about recognizing of your income. Because you know that if you've got something that is open-ended, you cannot realize that in your income statement as an income. So as an authority, we are looking at all various permutations to say that if anyone has got something that is open-ended and your CFO or anyone that deals with your financials needs to put in recognition of expenditure, how does it affect consumers? Because this is something as a regulator we need to understand. And as Councillor Mushi has indicated, it's a continuous consultation on this matter. And secondly, Chair and members, I think we recognize that, you know, with these emerging trends that are before us today, the industry that we regulate has become different from where we came from as ICASA in 2000. So we are mindful that whilst we're talking about data expiry, rollovers, I agree with members when they ask the question in terms of technology enable some of these things to happen. And I think it's an area that we are looking very closely as an authority to make sure that when we come back to you, including our portfolio committee on communication and digital technologies, if there's any legislative framework that needs to be revised, realigned and calibrated, that's an area that we're going to be focusing upon. And finally, I think from our side, I think Councillor Mushi has indicated, Chair and members, on the issue of consumers, especially on the education, the 0 rate framework, we have noted that, yes, indeed, our learners, even the elderly, those that wants to go into education, it becomes important for them not to access government sites and still pay. We have made provisions on that, and I think it's something that we need to acknowledge the good work through the Department of Communication and Digital Technologies that we continue to do. But I am not going to not accept the challenge that has been presented by our consumers, but I can assure the committee and the chair that we are on top of the matter. I think post-November, I think Honorable Tambo, I think post-November, what we are going to be doing as an authority, we are going to come up with a transparent manner where we need to showcase all South Africans how data cost has actually declined in the past 10 years. I think transparency, perhaps it's something that, I mean, I've been with the authority for 1 year and 4 months now, Chair. I can attest that sometimes when you deal with citizens, if you are not transparent in how you report, there'll always be this doubt whether are we regulating for the public good or not. And I think as a chair, I can attest to members, post-November, we are working towards making sure that we provide evidence in what we regulate. I think the DG is on the call. We have been hamstrung in the past year's chair. Issues of cost, I think in terms of financial constraints that we have in my institution, to a large extent, may have limited us to give a better assurance on whether we are alert or we're managing things. So in terms of securing the skill sets that are needed, the data analytics, we need data miners because, Chair, we've been having data for the past 25 years of our existence. Now, to an extent that mining of that data so that we can show you the correlation, the projection of the future, the impact that members have been asking in terms of what has been the impact of this data not rolling? What kind of savings? I must be honest, and I think transparency does help, that we had limited resources to do some of the analysis that the members are requesting. But in partnership with COMCO, you can see that in terms of advancing issues in our country, we are actually now moving forward to provide evidence to those that we regulate and those that are consuming our services. So in terms of resources, the department is aware we need additional money. We've already presented this to the Portfolio Committee on Communication Chair and members, that in terms of tools, we need to make sure that we run a smart regulator so that we don't come to you, Chair and members, not give you firm answers. And I'm really happy that we had an opportunity today and working with the NCC. You have seen the good work that we have been doing, and I really appreciate your support in the committee. But as I said, post-November, Chair, if you give us an opportunity now, Q4, we will come and then provide you now with evidence to say, how are we moving the middle in this country so that we can change people's lives and make sure that the economics, especially for the rural communities, those that wants to buy data, can get into the business mainstream. Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. Thank you. And members.
Yeah, just before you go, so that we are clear, what is this November date you're talking about, Chairperson, so that we are clear when we communicate? What is so special about November? Why you want until November? What's going to happen?
Oh, it's the regs through you, Chair, as Councillor Mushi has indicated, we'll be publishing the regulations as amended.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there was a question from Honorable Tambo that the last time we met, we spoke about a revised. So that's what Councillor Mushi has now confirmed in November. Thank you.
Perfect. So at that time, those regulations will be approved or will be published?
Yes, we're going for publication, Chair.
Okay. No, that's fine. And then the other responses, as per what Commissioner was how he has lined up. Over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable members. As Commissioner indicated, my name is Prudence Milwa. I head the Complaints and Investigation Division of the National Consumer Commission.
Can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes. To the question about contravention of Section 63. As the NCC, our reading of Section 63, definitely from the reading, they are in contravention of Section 63. In our enforcement of the Act, it also enjoins us when we approach regulated industries because of the dynamics, especially because the operators are licensed by ICASA and also regulated by ICASA. We are enjoined by the CPA to work in collaboration with the regulator because they understand the dynamics in the industry better. I think one thing that became clear, honorable members, was the unintended consequences of wanting to enforce Section 63 for compliance, wherein we realized in the industry from working with ICASA and engaging with industry that the unintended consequence would be if all data becomes for 3 years, then it will be too expensive for as you know that the length of the data period is also it also affects the price as well. So that is one of the things that made us then also look towards ICASA to understand this. And the effect of the rollover and transfer in terms of the 2022 regulation, from our assessment of the complaints, is that we have not been receiving complaints around data expiry. As Chair indicated, people buy data to use it. So we still want to watch the space and work with ICASA to work around the dynamics of data pricing that can affect us arguing for a 3-year extension of all data. And I think that's for us one of the important observation to say the 3 years would have the unintended consequences of data being too exclusionary. And for, as the councillor has stated, the 5 Rand airtime, the 10 Rand airtime, is very useful for students and other people. It now gives access to them. So I think those dynamics are what we are still navigating as we work with ICASA and as we continue to look at the latest version of the regulations as they are published now. And I think also we agree with members that exploitation of consumers within the sector is rife. And I think from the slide presented by Commissioner, you will see that we get a lot of complaints against network operators, and it is an indication that there are exploitative practices within the industry, and we intend to deal with them. And as Commissioner said, we intend to also take some of the matters to the tribunal. As you've seen, we've already taken Vodacom, where they were fined up to R1 million by the tribunal. On the issue of the revenue, I do believe that at the time when the assessment was done, the issue of revenue was assessed by ICASA, and if maybe in terms of the records, they can be able to maybe look at revenue that was generated at the time on the issues of expired data. So I think that information maybe ICASA can maybe assist the portfolio committee with. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Prudence. Thanks, Councillor and Chair. Chairperson and members, I think from our side, and we have noted what Honorable Nchingila said in terms of the recommendations is making. And I think all of these issues are worth considering from our side. We will consider this because, as you say, the market for us, it's a high priority market. It's a very important market to even bridge the digital divide. So we look at the space in terms of the cost, of access. Are consumers getting value for money? Are they being exploited? And there are the consumers that are in vulnerable positions that we are even more concerned about. And this is something that we will have to reflect. And as you can see, we working collaboratively with the ICASA. We will have to engage with the Competition Commission so that our regulatory response is both coordinated and impactful. I accept, that you would expect us to enforce immediately some of the provisions, but as we engage with the regulator, we allow for those engagements to conclude as we look for a more permanent solution to address the issue. But what South Africans should note is that they have the rights, they are protected in terms of the Consumer Protection Act. If there are consumers out there, even as the regulations are being finalized, if they are going through these difficulties, that the data they buy keeps expiring, would encourage those consumers to approach the National Consumer Commission so that we can look into those issues. As Chair, as you've said, I think there are other issues that we are picking up from the market, that consumers are also worried about data depleting too fast. I think we are now reaching that point with 5G and more faster, networks. Data depletes faster. Again, this is something that we will have to engage on a technical level with ICASA so that we ensure that consumers in the country are protected, they get value, they can access all the services they have to access in a cost-effective manner. And we have noted, Honorable Nkutu's concerns. As I've said, this is a priority matter for us. The issue on the value of unused data, it is something that we will have to, and I think as Prudence said, ICASA had done the assessment, but I think there can also be further considerations on this matter, especially when the practice is continuing. But Chair, just to commit, to you, to the public, that we have prioritized these area. It's a very important area. It's important to ensure that we bridge the digital divide, but we will do what we have to do, consistent with policy and consistent with the applicable laws. And where laws have to be improved, we will make those recommendations through our ministries. You can see we have the DTIC, we have the digital technologies, and this is how we have been working collaboratively in this sector. But we do note the need for a swift response to make it easier and better for consumers to access data, to get full value for money. And if there is information when we do further assessments that this is a profiteering scheme by mobile network operators, we will have to take appropriate action in terms of the Consumer Protection Act. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Doris.
Thank you again, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Chair, I think we just need to emphasize that as the Commission, we are committed to ensuring that the sector remains competitive, and as a competitive sector that leads to a reduction in pricing, especially of such an important commodity as data. And I think honorable members, including you, Chair, have emphasized the importance of data in the environment and economy that we are currently in. So I think that is the one area we just wanted to say. We continue, these markets remain priority markets for the Commission. We are continuing, Chair, to monitor the condition in the data services market inquiry. And I think Honorable Chair, Councillor Mushi has indicated that we are seeing, even on the zero rating that we had agreed to on website following the digital service market inquiry, we're seeing voluntary increase on the zero rating of other websites by mobile and network operators, and we'll continue to monitor that continues. So there is substantial compliance in relation to that. We are also as I said, providing support to the DCDT on the amendment of the ECA and together with ICASA. We think, Chair, on the point you've raised, as I said, on our advocacy work, there needs to be a collaboration, stronger collaboration between the Commission and NCC on how we better support the consumers on pricing, because although this is about data expiration, it impacts on the price, and I think that is something we will do. Chair, on the proposal you've made, you would have seen that we have an essential food. We used to publish what we call an essential food price monitoring report. We have renamed that to cost of living report. And that report, one of the things that we are looking at the pricing of that is data. And I think we could use that in the next publication of that report to look at some of the issues that that you have raised, that Honorable Member Gama and Honorable Member Mkutu have also raised. So I think it's something that we will look into going forward, Chair, in order to respond to some of the issues the Honorable Members have raised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Andre, are there further hands on the members?
There's no further hands, Chair.
After the responses from members, I must say that as the committee, we are not unreasonable or illogical, but it will be futile on our side to have a meeting of this nature and not come up with something tangible on the basis of the work that has been done. And we're not asking our colleagues from the department to take shortcuts, but we want to give hope to the data users out there coming from this meeting. We had a lot of interest. Our people have been worried about what is going to be the nature of discussion and so on and so on. I'm just worried about, when Councillor Mushe was speaking, she sounded more like as a councillor for business, not as a councillor for the communities, because you have a law as an instrument to protect you. Because whether or not they take the institution to court is neither here nor there. We must tighten the law so that the law speaks to the issues that we're raising. Because these are not the issues that come from us. We are public representatives. People are raising these issues because this is profiteering from the private sector. And it cannot be allowed to continue in the manner that has been continuing just because they have the financial muscles that they steal from us to take us to court. It can't be that we have public reps that think like that, and we think that is a solution for our people. So we do need to really say, what are the things that must be quick adjusted? If we say in November, we are going to make sure that everything is going to be aligned. It's reasonable enough to say it's going to be aligned, but here is an intent. The intent is to make sure that data is affordable and then that the issue of expiry date is addressed. If there is a feeling that the 3 year, which is a law, by the way, is too much, make proposition to change it to 6 months or whatever reasonable time. But this thing of a data expiring willy-nilly and without also an explanation what system is used, because if you buy data from the first, it should last you at least 30 days or something, or it should expire in 30 days or something like that. Let it be known, not this arbitrary experience that we're having, that you buy data today, 3-4 days later, or if you add into your data, 3-4 days later, they tell you, no, your data is expiring. And we have no recourse. And nobody in this meeting now is telling us, how are these things happening when we are there as regulators? Because there has to be a law that protects us as consumers, that protects consumers in as far as these things, firstly. But secondly, we've got to explain these things to our people. How do they work? If we're to have a public meeting now, none of these presentations explain this thing on how this data expire, what is the basis of it, and what happened to the data that has expired because we've paid for it. What happened to the money that has paid for it? So we're not really giving cogent issues that are going to give hope. So I'm imploring our colleagues here, and then I can see that other portfolio committee members are conspicuously very quiet today, are not raising issues. I'm not sure what does this mean, because this is at the heart of what affects our people, our voters on the ground. I really want us to come out here very, very clear, indicating what hope are we going to give. If all of you who presented can just give us a sense, what is a message of hope that we are going to give to our people on how we are going to resolve this issue as it pertains to price? Because to go back to history to tell them that, no, it has come down by 50%, data is still expensive anyway. We need to talk to them about what's going to happen in the future. It's important we can touch on how much they've saved, but it's important to touch how much things we're going to make better moving into the future. So we do need that message of hope, living this message. So when you issue our statement as a portfolio committee, most people always follow the work that we do. We must be able to say that in November we are going to firmly be adjusting the regulations, and we're going to take things from there. Let me allow the members to. I see. I even suspect my data is finished here. Let me see what I can do. Are there no hands, Andre?
No hands, Chair. There's no hands.
Can I start pointing members who have not spoken now to speak?
No, but you have summarized. What you summarized, you have already concluded. And of course, correctly.
Dr. Kigaba.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no. We want to allow members. I was coming in because, I hear the tone, but even the responses are not taking us where we want to go. Dr. Kigaba?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, you've summarized the issue for us, and the main issue is that the cost of living in South Africa is high, and our people are struggling not only to make ends meet, but they are struggling to pursue their most essential needs. The cost of electricity is high. Data the cost is high, and I think the discussion today highlights the need to ensure that we overall do our best to ensure that our people can afford these services, because in this regard, you are not only talking about people who are just using data for social interaction. People need it to run their small scale businesses. Students and young people need it to study. All round, people need data to be able to either conduct business, study, and other things. So, we've got to move ourselves beyond the bureaucratic framework to begin to think not just from the point of view of the businesses providing these services, but from the point of view of the people who are utilizing these services in order to uplift their lives and contribute to the growth of the South African economy. Because at the end of the day, without us being able to support small businesses, young people doing research, and ensuring that there is proper digital infrastructure in the country that is affordable and accessible to the majority of the people, we are not going to achieve sustainable development. And I think we need to think differently, because sometimes the manner we frame this discussion is such that we seem to be favoring those who are currently generating surplus value from the provision of these services, rather than those who are going to contribute towards the development of the economy. We are a developing country after all. And one of the things we've prided ourselves with in the past was our ability to provide cheap transportation and energy services. And now we seem to have flipped the tables, and generally life has become expensive in the country. And I think the colleagues from ICASA, the Competition Commission, ought to understand us from that perspective and answer the question without being beholden to the views of the powerful, the dominant in the ICT industry. What do we need to do to provide an affordable and accessible digital infrastructure that's going to assist the country as a whole to achieve sustainable development through ensuring that the poorest of the poor are able to also access services of this kind? In actual fact, it's not only the poorest of the poor, because even the middle class in South Africa is struggling to make ends meet, because life has become expensive and costly. So this is the point we are raising, that we believe must be the takeaway for the colleagues who are professional in their respective spaces, and understand we're not raising these issues just from the point of view of political populism, but we are raising them from the point of view of the political leadership of the country that are interested in the sustainable development of the country. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Gama, Chair, raise his hand.
Thank you very much, Honorable Gama.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I just want to support that the answers, especially from ICASA, they don't appear to me to be adequate, especially because the purpose of regulation is that we want to make sure that there's fair pricing. We want to make sure that if you have an oligopoly such as the communications industry, where you've got few players, because there are barriers to entry, there are high costs to enter, that the players, the network operators, they can play a fair game. They must earn a fair income, because what we see is the executives, they earn excessive incomes and bonuses, and if this is being done at the back of poor rural people whose data expires every 30 days or every week without having been used, and then they find themselves having to top up. It is an unfair practice that needs to be nipped in the bud. What we are looking for is imaginative regulators who come to us and say, this is how we're going to deal with issues moving forward. And to say we've done an assessment, but I don't know what the numbers are, is completely inadequate, because there must be something in the back of their minds at every turn in terms of what was the outcome of that inquiry. Because I think you choose to keep those things confidential, yet these companies are actually public companies. Disclosure should be top of mind in as far as some of these issues are concerned. And I think what the Competition Commission says about the Vodacom Massive settlement is something that we should look at for the entire sector, in terms of how you would recall, for instance, in the past, Telkom and Eskom were required to go and electrify in rural areas or to provide landline in the rural areas so that every corner of the country can be networked. It's the same with data. In terms of the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution that we say we want to go to, we can't have society that is still on the second industrial revolution. We need to leapfrog our people into the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution. And it is these companies, through data in a digital world, in a world which, in terms of ICT and digitization, communication becomes important. And so therefore the commodification of data is actually counter to the development trajectory of our country. It is counter to making sure that our citizens can actually, communicate. And we need to make sure that what they buy with their last rand actually assist them to do what they have to do, and that there is no one who comes and interferes unfairly with that and says, no, it is now expired, you bought it. As we've said, you can't say it's like a parking ticket. The data is unused, but it's been bought. Where is that surplus going to? Does it end up in the pockets of executives as bonuses at the expense of poor people in rural areas, indigent, blind people? Most of these people that are using some of this data, they actually receive social grants. So it can't be, therefore, that we can provide a wishy-washy answer on these issues. We need a cogent answer that says, this is what we're going to do and this is when we're going to do it. I don't know whether the date of November means anything myself. That maybe there's something that's going to be happening in the supervening or in the intervening period, which can then say to us, look, committee, in 2 months' time, I'll come back to you with 1, 2, 3. But we would really like to have answers to these questions, and we want a proper program that says this is what we are going to do. Very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chair, Mr. Nshingila, Chair, and also the Chair of ICASA also raised his hand. Thanks.
Okay.
I think members have agitated a very important areas of focus for discussion. That, of course, it's unpatriotic for ICASA in the main to be pro-business and profit-driven, adopting such a legislative framework. Because at the center and at the core of a nation building or development, communication is very critical. Even in a war, communication is central. But in the age of digitization, and also with further discussions that we're having in other committees, including issues of satellites, cyber intelligence centers, it shows that we are nowhere near in really addressing the real issues that ought to facilitate sustainable development. I mean, if we are failing to tackle the cost of communication, directly impacting of how we conduct our businesses, so that on its own, it's a more neoliberal kind of an approach than a pro-poor, community-driven small business or informalized kind of a policy posture that assists engagement for inter business engagements amongst those that may not necessarily have the means to buy huge data. So, Chair, here, I mean, we're saying these results are over like 4 billion. If we are really going to really address this issue, we will be saving something like 4 billion in a year if we are really considering these consumer reductions. But also, Chair, I think the November a deadline that we are given, it must also conclude on the zero rating as an agent need, because it will directly benefit organization, but also a proposal that we need to have localized discounts in low-income areas, but also we need to have also transparency on other specialized offers that are going to address the issues of data affordability, and also as much as we are not proponents of reformist politics, but the proposed reforms ought to also be linked to spectrum licensing obligations as well. As much as we would support the ICASA DCTT on ECA amendment bill, that will also maybe it attempts to enable wholesale competition, cost-based pricing, roaming agreements, and municipal pay waves. I think those are very, very important ones. Engagements that must be concluded so that there is a broader overview or review of the structural makeup, but also the business models thereof. And also, Chair, I think I'm just looking at the notes that I've also, but also want to also sponsor from the Competition Commission further engaged in investigations that were not part, of course, of this engagement on the cases of on fiber open access networks. Because I mean, we've received serious complaints around reverse billing sites, where websites also absorb data costs. I think it's something that unfortunately I could not raise there, but I've also saw it now on my notes for serious consideration as to how far are those investigations, if there are any. Maybe we need to also have a response on that. But the responses that we have received are not necessarily bearing fruit. Can we revolutionize and radicalize our policy posture in the interest of developing this nation? Not necessarily wanting to conform to the oligarchy, because it comes across as some do have private engagements with big business and forget the primary mandate of regulation, but also making data affordable. Because there have been engagements or discussions or talks in corridors that you find that data, particularly MTN and Vodacom, is cheaper in other countries than in South Africa. And that on its own, it's a problem. I mean, it's like back then where you would find we would supply electricity to our neighboring SADC countries at a cheaper rate, but we find that our tariffs would be very high in the country. And what then you ask yourself, what then becomes the methodology that is used to calculate the saying of such critical weather data or kilowatts per se. So, Chair, I think these are the ones that I would have wanted to further to emphasize for serious considerations in their engagements. But of course, we must have recommendation. In fact, we must have a commitment from the two entities for November that which areas are they going to focus on and what exactly is the expectation when they come back. Because we can't come back and open another discussions, but they must identify in their issues that have been raised by members that here we are going to come back and would have resolved these particular items, and that which will warrant more time for us to be able to resolve. These are the areas, and also these are the expected timelines, because we need lead times so that we can be able to measure impact and measure influence all the work that would have been done by yourselves. So I think, Chair, that's the guidance and direction would require, so that they give us identified or itemized areas that are going to be dealt with immediately, and those that would require legislative reviews and longer processes also be highlighted, and we'll take it from there, because we'll also use our own parliamentary influence to assist the work that is going to impact positively into our constituents for developmental purposes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. No more hands, Andre?
Chair, no hands, Chair.
Okay.
It's just the chairperson of ICASA raised his hand, Chair.
Okay, over to you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. Chair, listening to Honorable Nchingila right now, exactly what he just said, between the last 2022, when we're looking at the user charter, the work that ICASA has been doing, exactly how the honorable member has been articulating, that has been our strategy. And I'm glad that we are now aligning in terms of expectations of where the problem could be. I just wanted to assure you, Chair and members, that the approach and the commitment of the authority to address issues that affects our citizens is on our top agenda. What perhaps we couldn't have done today is to go deeper to what the honorable member has just said now, because I think we only focused on the data expiry element. But I can assure you, Chair, I've taken note of all the inputs, and I'm in a position of coming back, I think, to the committee. We have already raised similar issues that honorable member has raised with our portfolio committee on communication and digital technologies, because he's quite right. Most of the issues that talks to cost to conduct business are intertwined. I'll give you just one example. The municipalities, they are one biggest factor when you do cost containment in provision of telecommunication services in South Africa. We've been having serious problems in terms of decisions that are taken to avail way leaves when you have to put in infrastructure for the mobiles that we license. So what I just wanted to assure, Chair, is post-November, I think it's a question of, as an authority, we will be outlining our priority program, that is a regulatory program that is supported by our policy, the department itself. We've identified those inhibitors, which has made it very difficult, Chair, in the past years to move the needle. In the main, Chair, it's our legislative framework. We are running the authority now under a legislative framework that is 20 years. Now, you can imagine that in the past 20 years, the industries that we regulate, they've changed. There's been market consolidation. For example, if you look at how when we licensed the Vodacoms and the MTNs, initially their mandate was to build, manage a network. But you might have seen of late, you have companies called towercos, which are outsourced. Now, because this kind of ever-changing, as a regulator, we needed to be agile. And the most important things that we needed to have, Chair and members, was to acquire skills. What members are asking, it can be done, and I'm going to be open, Chair, to yourself that we really require skills, because what the regulator requires to do is to come back to you with evidence. And I think where Councillor Mushi was coming from, in terms of the experience that we might have had with litigations, etc., Chair, perhaps just to paint a picture that, you know, from a skill set point of view, I mean, I'm an electronic engineer by profession. So when you engage on matters where sometimes people, they can take advantage that you may not know the sector that you are regulating. So it becomes important that when you engage in this sector, knowledge is what is required. And I think I'm glad to inform you that we have raised our issues with the portfolio committee, with the ministry. And at the moment, obviously, in partnership with some of the government institutions, including the CSIR, I'm in a process of capacitating our team. But our weakest link at the moment, Chair, has been to do proper analysis so that when we come to you as our principals, we shouldn't be giving you a kind of like a clouded answer. We need to be giving you scientific responses. And I'm glad, members, you have identified our weaknesses. I can assure you as a chair of ICASA that having listened to you, I'm going to convert that so that we come back to you proper with evidence so that we don't give you untested answers. But thank you very much, Chair. I've taken note. My team is listening as well. The November, maybe just to re-emphasize, the issue is, as Member Nchingila was indicating, it's mainly going to be an opportunity for South Africans now to know exactly, from a regulatory point of view, what is our game plan and what is our regulatory program in terms of the National Development Plan 2030. We've been talking about every South African needs to have access to broadband services. ICASA, in terms of your 5-year plan, what are the plans that you are putting together and your commitment? But they need to be supported by, obviously, budget and the skills. So that's the kind of information, Chair, when we talk about November, it will be that user charter, which will then pave way so that when we come to you, I need to make sure that when we leave every meeting, we must leave confidence behind, not doubts. But let me take the opportunity to thank you, Chair and members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think that's very, very helpful. I think in summary, basically all what we're saying is that as these entities that we are talking to, we are saying that you need to give us a takeaway from this meeting. Equally give us the time frame and commitment that we must give to the public as we conclude this meeting so that we are clear. And then secondly, I want you to give us a sense as you tried towards the end on what does November regulation entails and what will it do, especially in the areas that we are looking at on the data cost as well as data expiry, so that we are very clear that because you also can't say you have regulations and you are not clear what you sought to address, what you seek to address with those. So we need to be clear, especially on these two areas and many other issues that are technical, which you might have observed, but at least particularly on these two, so that we are clear what you mean. Also give us an indication on the legislative changes that are necessary, given the argument that you are making, which we accept, that there have been changes in the environment. So we need to know what are the areas that we are looking at so that Parliament gets ready and we support the Department of Telecommunications as they go through those legislative changes that are necessary in the main. So our preoccupation here as this committee, we want legislative changes that are going to be put on the table that audit are going to be reviewed in order to protect the public from unfair profiteering that is taking place. Now, as this particular portfolio committee, I think we are very clear that the data cost as part of the cost of living are worrisome, and we want them to be properly managed, and we want to use the legislation for that. Secondly, we want to make sure that the CPA is adhered to, and if there are changes to be proposed with regard to the data expiry, and we shouldn't sound as if we're confused about terminologies and so on, because the intention is clear. This is a data voucher that we buy online or physically, that the Section 63 is prescribing. So we want it not to expire arbitrarily as it has been happening. There has to be certainty about what does this data expiry means in the context of the law. So I think that's in the essence of what the committee is saying and or is recommending in this meeting. I will take a last bite from the DG as well as the person from the DTIC if they want to conclude, and anyone who wants to come in so that we can conclude our meeting. DG, yes.
Thank you, Chair. And I think we've heard the discussion, Chair, just to indicate that it has been submitted.
We are struggling to hear you, DG.
Okay, let me just try and see if I can switch devices, Chair. Maybe I can hand over to DTIC and Competition Commission at the moment.
Okay. At DTIC, in the meantime, the senior official.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and members, for the engagements and the issues that have been raised. We are noting them and will endeavor working with the entities to ensure that we do indeed fine-tune areas that are currently need to be fine-tuned in this area to make sure that the consumers benefit in terms of access to reasonable and affordable data. And we do acknowledge and appreciate also the fact that access to data equals access to information, and information is part of empowering our citizens, and we will continue to do the work as provided for in our legislation. And where there's areas that need to be looked into further, we will be working closely with the entities to see which areas need to be worked on legislatively where it is needed. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Are you better off now, DG?
I hope I am, Chair.
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. And I think then I can just echo the words also said from our sister entity. Chair, as I indicated earlier, there has been some substantive work that we have done together with the regulator in this instance. I think the publication that is expected in November this year, with regards to then the amendments of the end user and subscriber services charter regulations, will definitely then provide further clarity to consumers. The other issue aspect, Chair, and I think members have raised this, is the need for awareness, for public awareness. And I want to say that as a department, we will then endeavor to work with the regulator, as well as obviously the other entity, which is then the SABC, to make sure that we disseminate this information to the end users, that they would know exactly what then would be their rights come November of this year. We are working further, just for your information, honorable members, on the issues of the Cost to Communicate program. It was obviously coming from the Competition Commission, the 2021 outcome, where it was identified that we need a much more stringent legislation in this regard. And our work is then to look at a policy direction to ICASA on this matter, whilst we are obviously looking at the overhaul of our policy and legislation within this administration. But we are hoping, Chair, that, as I said, the November publications of the regulations will definitely provide that much needed relief and clarity to the consumers, along with the awareness programs that we will run. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other person who wants to comment so that I can close the meeting? We've been very efficient today. Okay. I think we are fine. Maybe let's agree, Andre, to try and arrange a joint meeting in November, maybe the last Tuesday of November. I'm sure it will give them enough time so that we then appreciate these changes that are going to be put towards the public, and then we can then take things from there. But for now, we will have sufficient things to say that we are seized with this matter and project everything towards the November, and the views, express the views that we would like to see certain things as part and parcel of the changes, without being definitive as a recommendation or as a decision in as far as this is concerned. Andre, I'm not sure whether is it possible to look at November 25th for a joint committee so that every stakeholder comes through and present to everyone, and then we can then communicate with our counterpart in the portfolio committee.
Yes, Chair, it's possible. It's most likely possible, Chair, but we will sit down with you and just fine tune it, Chair, that we can have that meeting by the end of November, Chair. It's definitely possible.
Okay. Any concluding comments, or we're fine? I can close the meeting. I think we are fine. I will really request Commissioner from NCC, if you can just, together with your colleagues, just say, the last comment I made about the takeaways, timeframes and everything, just send something to Andre and the team so that we're able to put things into context. I don't want us to overstep, considering that you need to go and do some work amongst yourselves leading into this important date. But it's important to reflect to the public that we have deliberated, and we are hopeful that things will look into these matters that are affecting them. If you can just do that with Andre, I think it will assist us a great deal.
No
Thank
problem,
you very much, colleagues. And is there any announcement, Andre?
Chair, just to announce that our next meeting will be on the 7th of October, Chair, and just to remind members to submit any concluding remarks on our oversight report, Chair, so we can conclude that business as well, Chair, when we come back.
Okay. Please also on the platform, if you can remind the members.
Yes, Chair, I'll also do, I'll do that. Chair, if possible, if you can just remain 5 minutes on the platform after the conclusion of the meeting, Chair. Thanks. If it's possible.
No problem.
Yeah,
colleagues, thank you very much. The meeting is officially adjourned.
Thank you, Chair and members.
Thank you so much,
you,
Honorable
Chair.
Chair and honorable members and other colleagues.
Thank you, colleagues. See you in October.
November.
Thank you, Chair.
November.
No,
Is the parliamentary recess that
Recording
long?
stopped.
October for us.
Yeah. Andre, you just wanted to stay with the chair.